Hey everyone, Shark here with tips on how to beat the Imaginarium Theater's Lunar mode for January of 2026. This video will cover which buffs to choose, which stages are the easiest, and which characters to use on each floor for maximum success. Make sure to boop that like button for good theater RNG, and let's go over what to do first. And the first thing I want to cover is the overall strategy when trying this heavy RNG game mode. Early on, you want to prioritize getting more characters, as the ones that you get at the start are not very good, with the exception of Magu. And as far as the best character you can choose from among your friends, Monolith and Ineffa are both really good choices, and I think Ineffa has a bit of an advantage in this theater, as she's really good against the Duckle boss, and she's also good on all the stages that Monolith is good in. By the way, if you need friends that have strong characters that are built for Imaginarium Theater, then come by our live streams or check out our Discord, where we have lots of people from every region that can help you out. Links to those are in the description. Now let's cover which buffs are the best to choose. I would prioritize getting the Electro and Lunar charge buffs, which are the Hydro and Electro buffs, especially the Blitzcore one, which basically turns a character into a hypercharged fischl. After going for that one, the Vaporized buffs are pretty nice, especially if you get the buff that gives you the Tidal Wave, and then the Overloaded buffs are the last ones I would choose, and then I would choose getting the buff that gives you a Thunder Strike. The reason for these choices is that you need a Hydro and Electro a lot more than you need Pyro in this theater, so you want buffs that provide a lot of Hydro and Electro damage. With these strategies in mind, let's go over each floor and what to do on them. Floors 1 and 2 are pretty simple, and I recommend fighting the Ruin Greater and Earth Drake for an easy time on stage 1 and the Pyro Golems on stage 2. These stages you want to use characters like Yanfei, Dahlia, and Sejuin, as they won't be very useful later on. Stage 3 has us fight our first boss, the Perpetual Mechanical Array, and Chlorine does really well here if you have one or two of the Electro Charge buffs, but really any combination of Chlorine, Raiden, or other older damage dealers plus an off-field Hydro character, and someone like Xiangling will do well. I don't recommend using Monolith, Magu, Arcana, or FIN-ancially though, because you want to use those higher powered damage dealers at later stages and not on this early one. Stage 4 is a Monolith defense stage, and I highly recommend avoiding the Fatui stage and the high pressure defense stage if you want the star rewards. Fight the small ruin enemies instead, as they can be temporarily disabled, and it's a lot easier to get them to focus on you compared to the other enemies on other stages. Mona and Linny can be nice here because even though taunting skills in Genshin are about as effective as a paper tennis racket, they can make the stage feel a little bit easier. And remember, this is a stage where you just have to run out the clock, so you don't need a whole lot of damage here. You just need the enemies to focus on you until the time runs out. You'll want some characters that deal good AoE damage for stage 5, and I like fighting the Water Zoo because all the enemies have an innate permanent Hydro aura, which makes elemental reactions and activating your blessings really easy. Durin, Aurorin, Beidou, Kuki, and tons of other characters are really good on this stage. As long as you don't bring a Hydro DPS, you should be fine. Stage 6 has our second boss, the Emperor of Fire and Iron, aka Spicy Tobias the Big Crab. This boss has a really tanky shield, and you want to bring a lot of Hydro application in order to break it. Yelan and Jingqiu are great here, and of course Monolith does well too. Electro characters are also pretty nice for the buffs, and characters like Arlecchino will do surprisingly well once the shield is down. Luckily, the subsequent shields the crab puts up are much weaker than the first one, so expect the second shield to be a lot easier to break than the first one. Stage 7 has you fighting either a Plunge Weasel or a Radiant Beast that drains your team's health. I like fighting the Radiant Beast a lot more, as the health loss isn't really that much of a big deal, and with enough damage you'll barely notice you're in danger, even without a healer. The Weasel, on the other hand, is basically designed for Veressa, and if you don't have her, it's super annoying to fight it, and it will be much harder to get the star rewards. Stage 8 is the Duckle boss, and this is so much easier if you have Ineffa or FIN-ancially or both. Ineffa is a much better choice since FIN-ancially needs another Nodcry character to really work, and if you don't have Ineffa or Ino and only FIN-ancially, it might be a little bit of a difficult time here. However, if you do have both, this boss will be a cakewalk. With only Ineffa, Monolith, or even Veressa with Jingqiu or Yelan does quite well here, and even more so if you have the Blitzcore blessing unlocked from the Hydro and Electro path. Stage 9 has you fight either lava churls or abyss mages, but I like the pyro abyss mages a lot more, especially if you have Venti because he's really great here. Bring a hydro character for the pyro abyss mages and then use Venti to scoop them all up. But as long as you have a decent hydro character or two, you really don't need any enemy grouping. Just focus on the abyss mages and you can largely ignore the slimes. The enemies start at the 12 o'clock position and they spawn clockwise. And the nice thing about the abyss mages is that they are considerate enough to teleport to where you are, so as long as you steadily move clockwise, you'll end up grouping the abyss mages that you need to beat in order to clear the stage. Once I complete either stage 8 or 9, this is where I typically do the Lunar Arcana stages. I like to start with the all-terrain combat mech first, as it is the harder of the two. It needs a bunch of pyro to make it overheat, and then even more pyro to break its ice shield. Arlecchino and Malwika work really well here, but so does Bennett and Xiangling, as Bennett's skill applies a lot of pyro, and so does Xiangling's elemental burst. This is a great stage for an overloaded team with Chevreuse, and if you have Durin and Fischl as well, it should be even smoother as the overloaded reaction is a pyro reaction. I would generally save Malwika or Arlecchino for this stage and then use the other for stage 10. The other Lunar Arcana stage, the left card, has you fighting a bunch of Black Serpent Knights. This stage seems spooky with all the HP draining that's going on, but Neuvillette is really good here since he can self-heal and AoE the enemies at a distance. Anefa is also pretty good here, provided that you don't get hit by the Black Serpent Knights, as they get a shield if they hit you while you have a shield, and Venti is also a great choice to pick here as he can group up the enemies really well. Stage 10 and the final stage of this Imaginarium Theater has you facing the Magu Kenki. This fight should be pretty easy, especially with all the buffs you have. Just remember that the start of the fight, the Magu Kenki is invincible for a few seconds, and then it becomes invincible again at around 75% health. If you're using Malwika, I would hold off using her elemental burst and just wait until after the boss is vulnerable under 75% HP, which is usually when it teleports to one side of the arena and has its clone do an AoE. This fight is not particularly hard, but the boss does love moving around to different areas of the arena, and as long as you can follow it and hold off on using your really strong hits until it's invulnerable, then you should be able to beat it with ease. And with that, you should be able to conquer this month's Imaginarium Theater. I hope these tips help, and if you want a Yulan roll, which is basically a way for me to do People's Abyss Theater or a count review for gifting a random number of subs based on Yulan's idol animation, then make sure to come by the stream and ask for one. That'll be it for this one, everyone. Stay jawsome, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.